Hey everyone, it's me again, Brittany, and I'm here today to film my long-awaited best and worst books of 2020. I asked you guys a few videos ago whether you wanted to see these books in separate videos or combined into one, and it was a resounding combined into one. There are 20 books to talk about. It actually just worked out really nicely. There was only, I think, 8 or so books that I rated 3/2 stars. There might have been more 3s sprinkled in there that I just didn't include, but there was 8 that definitely showed to me like my worst of the year. And when I say worst of the year, this doesn't mean that they're terrible books. Honestly, they're really not that bad. They are just definitely the worst books that I read of 2020 for me personally. So no one take offense, obviously. I feel like that should be obvious. Reading is to everyone's taste, and there is something that works for everyone. With that being said, my best books of the year, I actually went through the favorite books that I had snapshotted for every single month and kind of took my list from those. And these are my personal favorites of the year, but you're gonna see that I'm very biased when I make these lists. This is not a review in any way. I am actually barely going to be talking about what the book is about. I'm going to be giving you like cliff notes on why I felt that these books fit in the area that they fit in. So I will be leaving links down below to all of the books as well, just in case you guys want to check more out about them or see summaries on them if you want to buy them, anything like that. They'll be down in my description, so just go to the show more area and follow the links if you want to hear more. But with that being said, you have been warned. These are not reviews. They're going to be very biased. It's just a good time kind of list, you know? There are 20 books to talk about again, so I kind of just want to jump right in. I figured that the fun way to do this would be to go from my very worst picks to my very best picks. I've always been the kind of person that likes to get my bad news before my good news so that you can end on a sweet note, and that's what we're going to be doing today. So, you know, without further ado, let's get into it. Coming in at my absolute worst read of the year, Even the Darkest Stars by Heather Fawcett. If you saw the vlog that I read this in, I feel like this shouldn't be a surprise. This just was a very disappointing book for me. I think that there was a lot that I expected out of this book that I just did not get. I mean, for one, I went into it really excited about the aspect of dragons, and I think that the way that the dragons were involved or included in this book left me confused. It just didn't feel how I'd imagine dragons to be. I can appreciate that the author kind of put a twist on what I guess I should have expected, but it just definitely was not what I wanted. And I just felt like the timeline was very choppy. There was a lot of time spent on things that just didn't matter, and the things that seemed to matter a lot went by in the blink of an eye. I think what really tops it off as the worst read for me was the relationship and the fact that I could care less about it. There are ones that, yeah, I didn't love the relationship in, but this one I didn't feel the connection. I didn't see how it suddenly came up. I didn't think that it was very authentic, and I had absolutely no interest in going on to the second book at the end of this one. And it does leave off in a cliffhanger. But again, I think the plot twists in this one just were not twisty. Like, they felt like they wanted to be, but they weren't. This could definitely be for some people. There was cute animals. It was like a journey story. I normally like journeying stories, but yeah, not me. Coming in at number 2 is, surprisingly, Night Film by Marisha Pessl. You're gonna notice that with my most disappointing reads, a big reason why they were the worst books of my 2020 year are mostly because I had different expectations for them. This one I went into with such high expectations. This is one of those cult classic favorite thrillers of BookTube, and I've owned this book for years, and so when I finally got myself to read it this year, I expected the world of it. I didn't get that. It has, first of all, one of my least favorite tropes in thrillers. You've heard me talk about this trope and saying how this is my least favorite trope. I'll briefly say it right now. I don't think it's a spoiler. I don't like it when thrillers play the line of, is this a psychological thriller or is it paranormal? I hate that. I feel like it's kind of a cop-out, in all honesty, and this one switched around so many times. I really felt like the book had ended 4 times or something like that before it actually had ended. I was listening to it on audio, following along sometimes physically, and I really thought multiple times, like, oh, this is the end. That was the end. Cool, cool. And I'd look at the audiobook and I'm like, we are 6 hours in. But ultimately, the way that this ended, I needed more. I need more definitive answers. I appreciate when an author is like, you figured it out for yourself. I just don't think that there was enough I don't know, solidity for me. I need something more solid. This wasn't it. This was not it. Number 3 is Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. This one is, again, something that I just in general was more disappointed in. I knew not to expect it to be exactly like the TV show Haunting of Hill House, but I didn't expect it to be quite so different. I had heard of it described as a prequel. It's not a prequel. It's supposed to be like the story that we see in the TV show, but it's completely different. The cast of characters is mostly different. The ones that are the same are playing different roles. It would have been fine, but I had different expectations, and to be fair, it just wasn't spooky to me. There were some kind of spooky scenes, but I will say that this one relied more on the spookiness of it being disjointed. Our narrator is incredibly unreliable, and I really did feel like I was just in a lucid, like, daydream, like a psychedelic trip sometimes, honestly. She's not supposed to feel very solid and in control, which I understand, but I think that for me, it just made me feel a little too loopy, disjointed, and it wasn't scary because of that. I know that it was made in a different time, that this is like a precursor for a lot of horror that came after it. So I know that it wasn't gonna be that scary as like what we have now. I just didn't like feeling the way that I felt. I get too much in my narrator's heads, to be honest, so this one just kind of put me in a weird headspace. At number 4 is gonna be Winterwood by Shay Earnshaw. It was the first book I read of the year. Honestly, I should have realized then that this was gonna be a weird reading year since I didn't like the first book that I read. This one is more of a fluid reason. I just feel like I've seen this story done before a few times, like in a lot of very exact ways. I think that this story was way too similar to like Strange Grace. There is another one though that I'm kind of blanking on right now that also had kind of a similar woodsy, witchy storyline. I just think that those books did it better than this one. I don't know, there were some plot points that I felt weren't exactly necessary. I do think that the twists were pretty cool, but I thought that they were also kind of predictable, and I think ultimately just what left it kind of feeling meh in my mind was that it felt too similar to other stories, and I liked the other stories better. I just wasn't left happy in the end, which not all books need to leave you happy, but I wanted to be. Coming in at number 5 is one that I don't own, but it's Josh and Hazel's Guide to Not Dating. I'm gonna be honest with you, the reason it's so low on my list and one of the worst books that I read last year was just mainly because it relied on a trope that I really hate seeing in romance. The ending was just not it for me. I just felt like, you did this for what? I mean, up until that point, I had been really enjoying how their love story was going. It was fine, but I think that towards the end, I started really noticing a lot of issues with like miscommunication, and I hate to see miscommunication, but that wasn't the trope that like topped it off for me. Just the way that this book ended isn't something that I like in romance, and that's 1000% a personal preference, because this is definitely a trope that other people can like and do like, but it's just not for me. It wasn't my kind of happy ending, which is why I didn't enjoy it, you know? Number 6 is gonna be Moonwalking with Einstein by Joshua Foer. This is actually one of the first nonfiction books that I ever learned about and bought. I think it might be the first nonfiction book that I ever bought. I bought it in 2014, and I've had it since then just sitting on my shelves, staring at me, waiting to be read. But this one is kind of unique in the fact that the reason I rated it so low was because I feel like it lied to me. The concept of this book is that it's going to teach you how to remember everything, remember more things, and you're going to be able to remember so many things if you practice the things in this book. And I don't think that it really succeeded in that at all. This was much more of a biography than any kind of lesson. It's a man that doesn't have that great of a memory learning how to trick the system of his memory so that he can remember more things. But it was like cramming for a test instead of like actual practices that you can take into your life. You know what it kind of reminds me of? Like that era in YouTube where people would just title their video something very dramatic and extreme to get people to click on it, and then when they clicked on it, the story time had nothing to do with that, and you were left like, okay. That's what this felt like, which I guess I did buy it in like that era of YouTube. So yeah, look, it says the art and science of remembering everything. Why you gotta lie though? They even specifically say that like it in the end, like this isn't to remember everything, this is just to remember specific things to pass this kind of test. Not even like a test like for school, it was like a test for memorizers. Number 7 of 8, so one of my least bad books, Even the Darkest Stars by Hazel. This is another one that if you saw the vlog that I read it in, I think it would make a lot more sense as to why it was rated so low. This one has a great plot. This is one of the cases where even though I didn't like this story, I think it has more to do with the fact that the author, this was their debut novel, and I think that they're gonna grow a lot as an author. I'm 1000% willing and excited to try the second book, but for this one specifically, it didn't work for me. I just felt like the relationships were rushed. Like, we didn't get to see any of the relationships grow. The author, in my opinion, suffered a lot from like showing versus telling. No, the other thing. Telling versus showing. So we were being told that these relationships were really strong, but I didn't feel like I had seen that relationship get to that point, and it felt very jolty. Like, it felt jump cut. Like, even in the way that the story was told, like the boring parts that like you don't know really what to write about were just kind of like, oh, and now it's been a week and they're there kind of situation. And it just felt confusing, and I just felt nothing for our main pairing. In all honesty, I liked them separately, but together I just felt like they were rushed. I didn't see how they were supposed to be so head over heels for each other. The next book is going to be a lot better for me because these seem more like issues within the fact that this was the author's first published book, and it didn't really have anything to do with the plot because the plot itself I really enjoyed. Some people with the critiques that I saw were like, yeah, this is a plot that's been done a million times. I don't mind that. I don't mind a plot that's been done a million times. It's been done a million times for a reason, you know? I just like to feel with my characters. I want to be able to like put myself in their heads, in their shoes, and feel like I'm one with them, and that's not what happened for me in this book. And not in the case where it's like I have to relate to them, because I don't have to relate to the characters I feel for, but I just didn't feel any of their emotions, so. And the last of my worst books of 2020 is going to be I Hope This Reaches Her in Time by R.H. Sin. I read this for the Reading Rush, Booktubeathon, whatever it is, and I just didn't enjoy my experience with it. I know that this is a very biased situation, because what I didn't like about it was I felt very, cornered? I don't even know how to describe that. Basically, this wasn't written for me. This kind of story was written for a different kind of pain, and I didn't expect that. It had a lot to do with like broken trust from relationships and learning to love yourself and learning to like get out of abusive situations, things like that, and that is not what I expected from it. I thought that this was going to be a kind of more general poetry story about, I don't know, like pain and getting through things like that, and that's what I went into it expecting, and instead I felt like they were assuming things about me, but that's not the case. Like, this just wasn't written for me, and I didn't know that, but because of that, I just felt like the poetry should still hold, if that makes any sense. Like, even if you don't resonate with it, I think you should still find beauty in the poetry, but instead I found myself thinking that it was reading a lot like Tumblr posts from 2014. Like, these might have been Tumblr posts in 2014. It just didn't feel beautiful, I guess. That's harsh, because there were definitely some that stuck out to me like beautiful writing, but I'd have to read more by this author pairing just because I need to know if maybe just their poetry style isn't for me, or if it just is the fact that this one wasn't for me. That one's up in the air. Well, now for my top 12 books of 2020, we are jumping over. I'm starting with the worst of my best, and then we'll build up to the best. You know, I feel like that makes sense, right? So coming in at number 12 is actually Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste Ng. This one I debated leaving on the list because even though I adored it, I really, really did. I gave it 5 stars. I wasn't sure if it was something that had resonated with me enough to be in my best books of 2020. What I have noticed is what defines like a regular 5-star versus like my favorites of the year is if I resonated with the story in some way. And this one, maybe not so much, but I appreciate what it did to open my eyes to the fact that I actually like literary fiction. I've been very stuck in a mindset that I've only liked one type of genre and one type of book for so long, and this year was a year of exploring tons of different genres, but specifically Little Fires Everywhere was something that I went into with such low expectations. This is not a comment on literary fiction, it is a comment on my attention span, if anything. But instead, I found that I loved it. I loved seeing just like regular day-to-day life and normal problems, and I thought it was just such a good story. Everything about it was incredible. I liked that it was hard-hitting. I liked that it kind of talked about like darker parts of regular life while also just being about like regular relationships and regular secrets getting out. It just opened my eyes to the fact that I liked literary fiction. And because of that, I think that it has to be on this list, because without it, I think I'd be in the dark about that for a while longer. Number 11 is going to be The Afterlife of Holly Chase by Cynthia Hand. This is going to hold a special place in my heart for a while. I think this is going to be a book that I come back to every single year around the holidays. It's something that I needed to see because I liked seeing Holly as a main character. I liked that she was unlikable, and I think that I really learned from her experiences, because what we're meant to see, I think, with her is just the fact that she had so much to be grateful for and so much to live for, and she wasn't grateful until it was all gone. This is a Christmas Carol retelling. I know for me, I can definitely suffer from a similar issue. I just think that I have a hard time being grateful for the things in my life, and this definitely helped me see, obviously, that I should be. It was a story that I needed to see, and it's also something that just made me feel better for the holidays in a way that I hadn't been before I picked this up. And getting in the mood for the holidays for me can be pretty tough, so I liked it for that. I mean, it was pretty predictable. I'm not gonna lie, the plot twist wasn't that surprising. I just think I liked the way that it was done. Number 10 is Blood of Elves by Andrzej Sapkowski. I read this in a time where I was consuming everything Witcher. I have played the Witcher game, the third one, for a few years now. I love it so much. It's what got me into video games. It's a game that I replay a lot. And I was specifically replaying it in the start of 2020 at the same time that I was rewatching the TV show and at the same time that I was reading the books. I was very delved into this world and I just really found an appreciation for it. It's not like the fantasies that I normally read. It has a very unique flavor to the world. It's still just fun and different and adult and gritty, but different. Like, the scenery feels vivid. It felt unique compared to what I normally read, and I have always really liked the Witcher game, and it's not really a surprise that I really loved the Witcher book. I think it was really cool to see all of the mediums of this story come to life because they were all done so well. Like, the book is done so well, the video game is done so well, the TV show, in my opinion, was done so well. I just am so impressed overall with how this story has been portrayed, because you don't normally find everything to be kind of on equal footing, so I loved it. At number 9 is Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. This is one I didn't really expect to see on my list, but it is true that this, like, impacted me. This is something that I'm gonna look at on my shelves and be like, that was an amazing story. I've read a lot of 5 stars. Maybe I'm a little too free giving in my 5-star ratings. I don't always look at them on my shelves and go, wow, that was an amazing story. I just go, wow, yeah, I liked it. This is not going to be one of those stories. This is a story that I've wanted to read for so long. I literally have a line from the movies tattooed on my ribs. It's the, do you suppose she's a wildflower? I think I have a tattoo video. I'll link it up above. And I had never read the books, so I was really excited to finally read Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, and I was even more excited to realize that I actually loved it. I liked that this one was disjointed. But this one was disjointed in, like, the surreal, dreamlike qualities of it, where it doesn't make any sense. It's nonsensical, and it's enjoyable because of that. Like, you're not getting hung up on it. I think that was something where Haunting of Hill House kind of failed, because it was meant to be nonsensical, and you're not meant to get hung up on it, but I was. And in this case, I remember I fell asleep, I took a nap in the middle of reading this book, and I felt so confused. Like, I felt like I was in Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, and when I woke up, I wasn't sure, like, where I was, like, my footing. I'm telling you, I get very ingrained in my narrators' heads, which in this case was really cool, and I loved it a lot. I loved the artwork in this one. This is a really cool edition that I've owned for forever, so I'm glad I finally read it, and I'm glad I watched the movies with it, and I did a really cool, like, Instagram post for it. It was an experience altogether. Like, the Instagram thing I did, I took hours on it, when I probably shouldn't have. It was for a challenge for the reading rush, and I stayed up until like 6. Number 8, this is one that I actually didn't talk about, and it's because I was originally doing a reading vlog for it. I just never went up, so that's gonna be From Look Up With Love by Mariana Zapata. This is a romance that's been recommended to me a million times, and that I just had never gotten around to reading. I mean, it's been recommended to me for a reason. An ex-figure skater reading about a figure skating couple love story where there's a lot of sass and a lot of anger towards each other. Yeah, it was like a thing made for my kinds of tastes. And I do really appreciate the research that I feel like the author did to write this story, because it felt well done. Like, there was a lot of accuracies in the way that she wrote figure skating. I was never at the level that they were at. They were at like Olympic levels, and I never did pair skating, so I can't really speak on that stuff, but it felt fairly authentic. I like that our character kind of used ice skating as a coping mechanism. I'm telling you, I like to see similar issues in characters and see how they work through them. So I loved that, and I loved the ending for this one. I think that the ending was fabulous. The slow burn was amazing. I think the relationship really came to life. Like, I didn't ever question if it felt real. The only times that I was like, okay, are you serious, were for some of the figure skating terms. And even then, I can still appreciate that she did that much research to know those things. I loved this. I wish there was like a part 2, but like different characters, maybe the same. I don't know. It would be fun. Number 7, this is gonna be Cody by Jared Cullum. I will forever be grateful to Jared Cullum for having sent me his graphic novel and asking if I wanted it in the first place, because I fell in love with this. This is the mushy and sweet and soft and comfort feelings that I want in graphic novels sometimes. It's a story about a girl and a bear who basically save each other. Like, that's a match made in heaven for me, because I tend to have very, very strong relationships with my pets. In most cases, stronger than any of my other relationships. So seeing that in a story and seeing it play out so beautifully and like a precious little cinnamon roll, it really pulled on the heartstrings, because it wasn't all rainbows and butterflies. It definitely had the sad moments that really, I don't know, I loved it. And not to mention, like, the artwork in this is stunning. Like, everything about this made me so happy, and I'm just so happy that he sent this to me. Like, this was amazing. I know, a comfort story in my best of 2020. Who would have thunk? Not me.
Hey, look at us. Look at us. Huh? Who would have thought? Not me.
Number 6. I'm not gonna talk much about it. Queen of Nothing by Holly Black. It was the finale. It was the finale of the trilogy. Did I get everything I want? Kind of. Did I want more smut? Yes. Was it weird? Yeah. But am I ultimately really happy with how it ended and what I was given? Yes, I fell into this story, and I'm really, really appreciative of that, because I was kind of worried that this wasn't going to be for me, since I feel like Wicked King pulled me out of the story that I loved so much in Cruel Prince. I like how Queen of Nothing wrapped everything up. It could have been longer for me. I wish there was a 4th book, like a real 4th book, not like just the novellas, you know? I want more. I feel like I needed more. This was too slow burn, but I appreciate it. And the smut that was there was pretty nice. Wow, okay. Brushed my hair, I put on lip gloss, I changed my battery, I feel refreshed, which is perfect, because now we have to talk about the top 5 of 2020. And again, I'm not gonna have crazy amounts to say, but I feel like I always say that and then I talk for forever. So let's do it. So coming at number 5 is going to be A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik. I'm gonna be honest, this one just took me by surprise. I had very low expectations going into this. It seemed interesting, like a magical school and a magical school. That was really all I knew going in. I still expected it to be like Hogwarts-esque, I guess, and I'm so happy it wasn't. It was opposite. It was so spooky and grim and dark and vibey. I thought it was such a well-made world. We got so many details, and I feel like the magic system was so fascinating and different than what I've seen before. I mean, the world alone was really fascinating. I think that there was a lot of thought put into it, and it didn't really feel info dumpy either, even though it kind of was. So I appreciate that, but I also just really appreciated the characters. Like, I loved our main character being unlikable. I mean, are you sensing a trend? I like unlikable main characters. Apparently. We see like the soft puppy popular boy that is literally the golden boy, but he is just like a sweet little noodle, and I thought that he was gonna be kind of a jerk, and he wasn't, and I loved that. And I loved that he liked her because she was kind of mean to him, and no one's ever mean to him because he's the golden boy, and I liked that he liked her honesty, I liked their friendship, I liked their dynamic, I liked that because of him, she was able to make friends when people had been intimidated by her, and she had thought that no one ever liked her. I don't know, like I said, I like to see aspects of myself in books and see how they overcome it. And that is 1000% something that was in this. I need more stories with unlikable girls and soft puppy boys, you know? Number 4, Uzumaki by Junji Ito. I was between this and Tomi, since those are the 2 that I read this year, but I think that ultimately it is Uzumaki because this is the first book that I read by Junji Ito, and I haven't been able to stop thinking about it. It's such a creepy horror story, and it has a story that I just didn't think would stick with me that much. It's so outlandish, so I don't even know how Junji Ito thought of this and thought to make it a horror. It's hard to believe, it's weird, it's interesting, it takes so many turns that you don't expect, and it's body horror-esque, which I never realized I didn't mind at all. I don't know, I just really feel like this exposed me to Junji Ito in general, and that's why Uzumaki takes the cake. I literally have not been able to stop thinking about this book since I read it. I am constantly reminded of it, which is a little disconcerting, because if you've read this, then you know. Number 3, You Should See Me in a Crown by Leah Johnson. I know, another feel-good, sweet-ish book on my top list of the year. This is so unlike me. I read it so quickly, I listened to the audiobook, and I really just felt with our main character. I felt her journey, and I felt her emotions, and I loved it. I loved everything about it. I loved the story, I loved the dynamics, I loved the relationships. It's so much more than just like a cutesy coming out in a small town that's not going to be accepting of that. It's so much more than like all of the normal like actual issues that it deals with. I just felt a lot for her. I really liked the relationships that were explored in this, because we see her coming from a place of anxiety where she thinks that no one likes her, and because of that she doesn't make an effort to be with people, and instead, mild spoiler I guess, but you find out that no, that's never been the case. They all like her. Whenever they try to give her a chance, she thinks that they're not being honest with her, and she doesn't give them a chance, and because of that she's kept herself back from so many things. And it's something that I personally can relate to as far as like an anxiety goes. Personally, I don't know if my anxieties are unfounded or not. I don't know why, guys. I just always think that people don't like me and don't want to be my friend. It's not sad, it's just, I don't know, it's a mindset, and it's really good to see it in an actual book where it's an issue that's dealt with and kind of conquered. And I don't know, I loved it. I loved the ending. I felt a lot. To be honest, I was also reading it when I was doing my painting for my dad of like my Bubba painting. So I was already kind of feeling like emotions, and then I felt this and I felt more emotions, which is a lot for me because I'm not in touch with my emotions. Number 2, The Dragon Republic by R.F. Kong. And no, I still have not read The Burning God. Something in my mind is not letting me. I don't think I want it to be over yet. I loved this though. I love the world that R.F. Kong has made. It feels so realistic. I know that it's rooted in reality too. Like it is rooted in like actual like historical facts and things that happened in China, but like obviously it has its own fantasy twist on it. But the characters feel so real, and the situations that they go through are so realistic. I never can see the plot twists coming. It's just such an inventive and thorough world. And I love our characters. Like they all are not great characters. I'm gonna be honest, they're all fairly morally gray. This is supposed to be a villain origin story, so our main character is not supposed to be good at all. And so you don't expect much from them, but they all are growing constantly. Like the amount of character growth and the amount of like growth with relationships, I love it. And I really appreciate that like of all the conflicts that happen in this, I feel like I don't notice or haven't seen any conflicts that have to do with miscommunication. It can be done. Because you would think that that would be an issue, like in the way that this story is written with their relationships, like you would assume that that might happen. And so far I haven't really noticed it, and I love that. Like it's just, sometimes people are out for themselves. It's not miscommunication. Sometimes they're not going to tell you something that's going on because it doesn't suit them. It's just, I love this. I love this so much. So well done. And gritty and dark and violent, and I appreciate it for all of those aspects. Coming in at number 1, I mean, if you know me at all, you shouldn't be surprised. This is a very biased number 1. This was probably going to be my number 1 no matter what, because I feel so much when I read her books. You got it. You know it. House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J. Maas. This was Sarah J. Maas's first book in her new adult fantasy series, and I once again found everything that I needed in it. I know that Sarah J. Maas's work isn't for everyone. I know that people don't enjoy it for one reason or another, but I truly always get so much out of her characters. It's always the kind of character that I need to see in the moment. They're always dealing with an issue that I maybe have unresolved or maybe am currently going through, and watching them deal with that trauma, I guess, is so beneficial to me. It's why I connect so much to her stories. I just always find aspects of myself in the main characters. And a lot of the times it's weirdly relevant to exactly what I'm going through. I'm sure I'm not the only one. I'm sure that other people have felt this way too. I'm not special in that fact, but I just really do always have that happen. So yeah. Is it going to be the most inventive fantasy story? Maybe not, but I also think that Sarah J. Maas has a really, really amazing way of writing. I think she's grown a lot as an author. I think that what's magical about her writing is the fact that she can leave Easter eggs sprinkled in the very beginning of a story that you will not really think about until the end of the story when she brings it all back. She has a really cool way of wrapping things together, and I'm always having so much fun trying to figure out what those are going to be. And sometimes I'm right, sometimes I'm partially right. Most of the time I'm only partially right, and then sometimes I'm so wrong, but it's just still so cool to see how she does it. I mean, it's not surprising. I love Sarah J. Maas. Again, it's definitely just something that always resonates with me. That's why it's my favorite. She just hasn't let me down yet, as far as like feeling connected with her stories and represented and I don't know, working through things with her characters. I feel like that's just why. So yeah, I mean, I get it. She's not for everyone. I know that. I actually mentioned this. I had a comment that was talking about how it's okay to like her books, but I shouldn't be an unashamed stan because she is so problematic. And I commented back just kind of saying that, in my opinion, you shouldn't be ashamed, first of all, in what you love. And I know I love her books. I'm not going to stop loving her books because they resonate so much with me. And I can recognize that there are issues. I can recognize that other people see problems with them and still know that I have felt something from her stories. And that's okay, because I think that for me personally, when I say I love something this much, it doesn't mean that I'm not going to see any of the issues, ignore any of the issues, and just brush it under a rug. I just don't think you should apologize for loving something, but don't ever not look at issues because you love something. Does that make sense? Just, do research. Figure out why you love something. Is it because you feel seen? Is it because you like hot guys, I guess? Like, figure it out, and then go from there. Because I guess if it's not like an amazing reason, rethink it. That was a tangent, but this video probably is a little bit longer than I wanted it to be. Again, I'm sorry that this wasn't me telling you everything about these books. It's really just telling you why they're holding this place in my wrap up of my year, and I hope that it was still fun for you guys. I feel like it's strange because in my head, and I feel like maybe to some of you guys as well, I just haven't been reading as much. I used to read so much, and life has gotten crazy and chaotic and busy, and I find it so hard to settle down to read. And because of that, I feel like I'm not reading a lot. But I mean, I read over 70 books last year. I'm still reading quite a bit. And looking at it like this and being like, yeah, I read amazing books last year. I read not so amazing books last year. And there was a ton in the middle. It's good for me to see. I have a hard time recognizing minor successes. If I don't complete a whole mission, I'm just like, yeah, let's just scrap that. I'm working on it, okay? I'm working on rewarding myself for partial victories, as we all should. And I hope that it was fun for you guys too, because I feel like my main issue last year was I wasn't giving you wrap-ups, so you just didn't know what I was reading. So hopefully this kind of gave you a better idea, especially if you don't watch my vlogs. I am trying to get back into the wrap-up wave. You should be seeing a quarterly wrap-up of the first 3 months very soon. I mean, at the end of March, obviously. It's not the end of the quarter yet. Look forward to that. I hope that this was fun. Let me know what your best and worst book of last year was. I'm very, very curious. And if you obviously are like in between, I'm indecisive as hell, so I totally understand where you're coming from. So if you can't decide on that and you still wanted to comment, or if you want to add this to your comment, let's do an emoji and let's make it the detective emoji, because I feel like that's kind of what I was trying to resonate in my thumbnail picture. I have no idea if I succeeded. Just like the one with the monocle. He looks very mysterious. He looks like he's gonna solve something. He looks suspicious, which is exactly how I felt about 2020 and how I feel going into 2021, because I am not getting my hopes up, but I want something to be amazing, So yeah, let's do that. Let's leave the monocle emoji. That's gonna be it for this video today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for being patient with me. I know this has been a weird, rough part in my channel, and I can only hope to break through it soon, because I am tired of it too. It's one of those situations where I feel like from the outside it looks like I need a break, but in the inside, I'm like, I don't want a break. I just want to be back to normal. So we're just riding through it. So thank you for everyone that's been riding through it with me, and I love you and I appreciate you, and I will see you in my next video. Goodbye. It's not miscommunication.